At 6:47 a.m. on February 17, 1940, Corporal Simo Häyhä lay motionless in a snowdrift, 150 meters from a Soviet supply route near Kola, Finland. He watched a Red Army patrol of 12 soldiers traverse the frozen forest. The temperature was a brutal minus 43 degrees Celsius. The 34-year-old Häyhä had endured this position for 4 hours. His attire a mere white snow smock over his standard Finnish Army uniform, providing no dedicated winter camouflage. His weapon of choice was a Mosin Nagant M28/30, devoid of a telescopic sight, relying solely on iron sights. This rifle measured 46 inches in length, weighed 9.6 pounds, and was chambered in 7.62 by 54 mm R, featuring a 5-round internal magazine. Häyhä had already claimed the lives of 387 Soviet soldiers in 79 days of conflict. The Soviets had deployed counter-sniper teams and artillery strikes, and even sent patrols with orders to capture him alive. All to no avail. Now, 12 more Soviet soldiers approached, armed with Mosin Nagant 9130 rifles, complete with scopes. They outmatched Häyhä 12-1, yet none of them would discern their assassin, nor would any survive the ensuing 4 minutes. For those intrigued by how a Finnish farmer became the most lethal sniper in history, a like and subscription are encouraged for more astounding narratives. Born on December 17, 1905, in Rautjärvi, Finland, near the Russian border, Simo Häyhä hailed from a farming family. His father owned 150 acres, where they cultivated rye, potatoes, and hay, alongside raising cattle and pigs. Their farm was remote, with the nearest town, Mattila, a modest settlement of 400 people, located 8 kilometers away. As the second of 8 children, Häyhä received schooling until age 14, a common practice in rural Finland, after which he dedicated himself to full-time farm work. However, Häyhä was no ordinary farmer. He was a skilled hunter. Finland's dense forests, rich with pine, spruce, and birch, harbored elk, deer, fox, wolf, and bear. Hunting provided vital winter sustenance and honed crucial skills: patience, stealth, terrain interpretation, wind assessment, distance judgment, and precise shooting. Häyhä began hunting at age 12, and by 20, he was recognized as Rautjärvi's finest. He could hit a running fox at 400 meters and endure prolonged periods of motionlessness in sub-zero temperatures, abilities that would prove invaluable. In 1925, at age 20, Häyhä fulfilled his mandatory Finnish military service, a 1-year requirement for all Finnish males aged 21. He served in the Suojeluskunta, or Civil Guard, Finland's volunteer defense organization, which trained civilians for anticipated conflict. Finnish independence, gained in 1917, was fragile, with constant threats from Russia. The Civil Guard prepared for an inevitable invasion. Häyhä's military training heavily emphasized marksmanship, reflecting the Finnish Army's doctrine of rifle accuracy. Every soldier qualified at 150, 300, and 500 meters. Häyhä consistently surpassed these standards: 97% accuracy at 150 meters, 89% at 300 meters, and 72% at 500 meters. His instructors noted his exceptional precision and composure under duress. After completing his service in November 1926, Häyhä returned to farming, continuing his training with the Civil Guard and participating in shooting competitions, where he consistently triumphed. By 1939, he had secured multiple Finnish national championships. His competition rifle, a Mosin Nagant M28/30, would be the same weapon he wielded in wartime. Manufactured by Sako, the Finnish arms company, the M28/30 was a modified version of the Russian Mosin Nagant M91, boasting improved accuracy, a superior trigger, better sights, and a refined stock. It measured 46.5 inches in length, weighed 9.6 pounds, and featured a 27-inch barrel. The rifle fired 7.62 by 54 mm R cartridges, with a bullet weight of 185 grains and a muzzle velocity of 2,600 feet per second. Its effective range was 500 meters with iron sights and 800 meters with a scope. Heha, however, always preferred iron sights. Scopes could fog in the cold, glint in the sun, and required raising one's head higher, thus presenting a larger silhouette. Iron sights, in contrast, were simple, reliable, and faster. Heha could acquire targets and fire in 1.5 seconds with iron sights, whereas a scope averaged 2.8 seconds. Speed was paramount. From 1926 to 1939, Heha lived an unassuming life, farming, hunting, and competing. Standing 5 feet 3 inches tall and weighing 150 pounds, he was small by Finnish standards, quiet and reserved. He neither drank nor smoked, and attended the Lutheran church. He was remarkable only for his shooting prowess. No one foresaw this farmer becoming the deadliest sniper in history, nor did anyone anticipate war transforming him into a legend. Then, on November 30th, 1939, the Soviet Union invaded Finland. At 8 a.m., Soviet artillery bombarded the Finnish border town of Mainila. Soviet Foreign Minister Vyacheslav Molotov falsely claimed Finland had fired first, a mere pretext for invasion. The Soviet Union coveted Finnish territory. Joseph Stalin had demanded Finland cede land near Leningrad, and upon Finland's refusal, he ordered the invasion. The Red Army amassed a formidable force: 1 million soldiers, 3,000 tanks, and 2,500 aircraft. Finland's entire military numbered a mere 300,000, with no tanks and only 114 aircraft. The numerical disparity was staggering: 3 Soviet soldiers for every Finnish soldier, leading the world to expect Finland's capitulation within 2 weeks. Yet, Finland fought. Simo Heha received his mobilization orders on November 30th, 1939. He reported to his Civil Guard unit in Mittila and was assigned to the 6th Company of JR 34, Jalkaväkirykmentti 34, Infantry Regiment 34. The regiment deployed to the Kolla River sector, 50 kilometers north of Heha's farm, characterized by dense, frozen forest. The Kolla River served as the defensive line. If the Soviets breached it, they would advance to Viipuri, Finland's second-largest city. Losing Viipuri meant losing the war. Heha's mission was direct: halt the Soviets, eliminate anyone crossing the river, and prevent their advance. The Soviet 155th Rifle Division assaulted Kola on December 7, 1939, pitting approximately 14,000 Soviet soldiers against 4,000 Finnish defenders. The Soviets employed human wave tactics, emphasizing overwhelming numbers and deeming casualties acceptable. The first wave crossed the frozen Kola River at 6:30 a.m., met by Finnish machine gun fire that killed 800 Soviets in the first hour. The survivors retreated. The second wave attacked at 9 a.m., resulting in 600 more Soviet deaths. A third wave at 11 a.m. added 500 to the toll. By nightfall on December 7th, 2,400 Soviet soldiers lay dead, while the Finns suffered 68 casualties, an exchange ratio of 35-1. The Soviets had tanks, artillery, and air support. The Finns had rifles, intimate terrain knowledge, and unwavering resolve. Heha participated in this initial battle as a standard rifleman, firing 42 rounds and estimating 12 hits, though unconfirmed. He observed a critical pattern. The Soviets moved predictably, following roads, congregating, and exposing themselves. His hunting background taught him that predictable prey is easily dispatched. Soviet soldiers were predictable prey. Heha requested a transfer to a sniper role, which his company commander approved. On December 9, 1939, Heha became a designated marksman, operating independently, selecting his own positions, and engaging targets of opportunity. His only restriction was to remain within 500 meters of Finnish lines. Heha accepted, and his hunt began. Heha's first confirmed kill as a sniper occurred on December 10, 1939, at 7:23 a.m. A Soviet officer, organizing a patrol 250 meters from Finnish lines, was visible through the trees. Heha, prone in the snow, aimed, exhaled slowly, and fired between heartbeats. The officer fell, and the patrol scattered. Heha remained still, waiting. At 7:31 a.m., a Soviet soldier approached the fallen officer. Heha fired again, and the soldier dropped. The patrol retreated. 2 kills. Heha meticulously logged each kill in his personal record. Date, time, range, and conditions. A methodical, clinical process, akin to a farmer recording harvest yields. Over the following week, Heha refined his technique. Operating alone, he would leave Finnish lines before dawn, moving 200 to 400 meters toward Soviet positions. He sought concealment, a snowdrift, fallen trees, dense brush, and meticulously prepared his position. He cleared snow from his muzzle area, knowing that muzzle blast disturbs snow, revealing one's location. He packed snow tightly around himself, exposing only his rifle barrel and head, minimizing his silhouette. Then he waited. Soviet patrols moved through the forest daily, following trails and searching for Finnish positions. They were targets. Heha engaged targets at ranges between 150 and 400 meters, preferring 250 meters. At this distance, the 7.62 by 54 mm round maintained a velocity of 2,100 feet per second, with a bullet drop of only 7 inches and minimal wind drift. He aimed for the center mass of the chest. The bullet's energy at 250 meters, 1,850 foot-pounds, was sufficient to penetrate Soviet winter uniforms and ensure an instantaneous kill. In December 1939, he averaged 5.3 kills per day, an exceptional rate, 7 times more effective than the average sniper's 0.8 kills per day. His method was consistent. Fire once, wait, observe. If more targets emerged, he would fire again. Crucially, he never fired more than 3 rounds from a single position, as exceeding this limit allowed enemies to triangulate his location. After 3 shots, Heha would withdraw 50 meters, establish a new position, and wait. Sometimes, Soviet return fire, artillery, machine guns, mortars, would strike his previous location. But Heha was long gone, leaving the Soviets to destroy empty positions. By December 22, 1939, Heha had 87 confirmed kills. His company commander verified each one, a process requiring a witness or direct observation. Though Heha operated alone, witnesses were rare. However, his company frequently observed Soviet casualties when reclaiming positions, and these deaths consistently matched Heha's reports. The kills were undeniably real. The Soviets began to take notice. Patrols discovered dead soldiers, uniformly killed by single gunshots to the chest or head, with no sounds or muzzle flashes detected. The soldiers were falling to an invisible threat. Soviet officers interrogated survivors, who reported nothing, only a single shot and a fallen comrade. They took cover, occasionally dodging another shot, and a soldier would fall without ever seeing their assailant. The Soviets dubbed him White Death, a name that echoed with fear among their troops, especially when deployed to the Kala sector. They knew the White Death operated there, certain it must be a team, perhaps 6 to 8 snipers. How else could one position inflict such heavy losses? It was beyond comprehension that a single farmer, relying solely on iron sights, was decimating entire patrols. On January 8, 1940, Soviet command dispatched specialized counter-sniper units to Kala. These teams, comprising highly trained snipers equipped with scoped Mosin Nagant 9130 PU rifles offering 3.5 times magnification, were tasked with one mission: locate and eliminate the White Death. Operating in pairs, one spotter, one shooter, they employed standard counter-sniper tactics: observe suspected enemy positions, await a muzzle flash, and immediately return fire to suppress or kill the sniper. These tactics were sound, but consistently failed against Hiha. The issue lay in Hiha's unique method. He fired from a prone position, deeply embedded in the snow, with his rifle's muzzle below the snow's surface. This meant that when he discharged his weapon, the muzzle blast dissipated into the snow, producing no visible flash and muffling the sound. Soviet counter-snipers would hear shots, but couldn't pinpoint their origin. They would observe likely positions, only to find Hiha wasn't there. He had already relocated, often 50 meters away, making them hunt a ghost. Furthermore, Hiha expertly exploited the extreme cold. At temperatures reaching -40 degrees Celsius, exhaled breath forms visible vapor, betraying a position. Hiha counteracted this by holding snow in his mouth, which kept his breath cold and prevented any vapor from forming, rendering him imperceptible to Soviet snipers who were specifically looking for such telltale signs. Hiha was, effectively, invisible. The Soviets then resorted to artillery. If counter-snipers couldn't find him, artillery would saturate suspected areas with shells. On January 15, 1940, Soviet artillery bombarded a 500-meter stretch of forest where Hiha was believed to operate. 200 122mm howitzer shells rained down for 30 minutes, obliterating trees and churning the snow, utterly destroying the forest. When Finnish scouts surveyed the aftermath, they found Hiha 800 meters to the south. He had observed the artillery preparations and moved before the shells landed, resulting in 0 casualties and leaving the Soviets with 200 wasted shells. Next, the Soviets attempted infiltration. Small teams would move under the cover of night, establishing ambush positions along routes where the White Death was known to operate, ready to kill him upon sight. On January 22, 1940, an 8-soldier Soviet team infiltrated 300 meters behind Finnish lines, setting up an ambush at a trail intersection. They waited. At 6:45 a.m., Hiha approached, 180 meters from their hidden position. He paused, sensing something was amiss. Hunters develop acute instincts, and Hiha screamed danger. He withdrew, circled 400 meters east, and approached the intersection from a different angle. By 7:30 a.m., he observed the Soviet ambush team, who were fixed on the trail, their backs exposed. Hiha felled 4 of them before the remaining soldiers fled, their ambush a dismal failure. By February 1, 1940, Hiha had amassed an astonishing 219 confirmed kills. The Soviets intensified their efforts, deploying more counter-sniper teams, escalating artillery bombardments, and sending out specific patrols to hunt the White Death. All failed. Hiha adapted faster than their tactics could evolve. When counter-snipers appeared, he increased his frequency of position changes. When artillery struck, he operated from deeper locations. When hunter patrols sought him, he became the hunter. His kill count soared. Compounding their tactical failures, the Soviets grappled with plummeting morale. Soviet soldiers knew intimately about the White Death. They understood Kala was little more than a death trap. Volunteers for patrols dwindled, forcing officers to order soldiers forward. Some soldiers outright refused, knowing refusal meant execution. Yet, death from the White Death seemed a certainty, while execution was only a possibility. Some chose execution. Soviet discipline teetered on the brink, but the pervasive fear was palpable. A single Finnish farmer with a rifle had instilled terror into an army of 1 million. February 1940 marked Hiha's deadliest month. The temperatures plunged to -40°C to -45°C. Soviet soldiers, clad in heavy brown winter uniforms, became stark targets against the white snow, visible from 500 meters away. Hiha exploited this, extending his engagement range from 250 meters to 350 to 450 meters. This longer range reduced the accuracy of Soviet return fire, but demanded exceptional marksmanship from Hiha. At 400 meters, bullet drop was 22 inches, and a 10-mile-per-hour wind caused an 8-inch drift, yet Hiha compensated automatically. Years of hunting had ingrained these calculations into instinct. On February 17, 1940, Hiha had an exceptionally deadly day. In one instance, he eliminated a 12-man patrol in just 4 minutes, firing 12 rounds for 11 hits. One wounded soldier escaped. Relocating, he found another patrol, adding 4 more kills, then another, for a total of 16. The Soviet 155th Rifle Division reported 23 casualties in Hiha's sector that day, 7 from artillery and 16 from sniper fire. All sniper casualties were attributed to the White Death, and Hiha confirmed 16 kills, perfectly matching the numbers. By February 21, 1940, Hiha's confirmed kills reached 387. This was extraordinary. The Winter War had lasted 83 days, giving Hiha an average of 4.7 kills per day. The prior record holder for most sniper kills was not officially known, as records were not widely kept in 1940. But estimates placed the highest previous total at around 150 kills by a German sniper in World War I. Hiha had more than doubled that, cementing his place as the deadliest sniper in history, and the war was far from over. However, February 21, 1940, also marked a shift in Soviet command tactics. They ceased their attempts to find Hiha directly, opting instead to decimate the entire area where he operated. On February 22, 1940, Soviet artillery began a sustained saturation bombardment of the Ka sector, not targeted strikes. Every day for 4 hours, 500 shells rained down. The objective was clear: destroy the forest, remove all cover, and make sniping impossible. The bombardment persisted for 12 days, from February 22 through March 5, 1940. 6,000 shells obliterated 3 square kilometers of forest. Trees were pulverized, snow mixed with shrapnel and dirt, visibility dramatically increased, and cover disappeared. The Soviets had succeeded in rendering the terrain less favorable for snipers. Hiha adapted once more. He moved to new positions daily, digging shallow fighting positions. He operated at dawn and dusk when light was poor, drastically reducing his exposure time. Instead of 4-hour watches, he operated for a maximum of 90 minutes and fired fewer rounds per position, 2 shots instead of 3. His kill rate decreased but remained significant. Between February 22 and March 5, 1940, he killed 73 more Soviet soldiers, bringing his total to 460. The Soviets had transformed the terrain, intensifying their counter-sniper efforts and dedicating artillery and air assets to finding him. But none of it stopped him. But on March 6, 1940, something finally did. At 6:32 a.m., Hiha was in a firing position 290 meters from Soviet lines near Kola. The temperature was -38°C. A light snow fell, and visibility was 400 meters. He had been in position since 5 a.m., 92 minutes. He had fired 4 rounds, 3 hits, 1 miss, resulting in 3 dead Soviet soldiers. He was preparing to relocate when a Soviet patrol of 6 soldiers appeared. They moved cautiously, searching trees, snowdrifts, and ground irregularities. They were a hunter patrol explicitly looking for snipers. Hiha observed them from 320 meters away, an extreme range for iron sights. He calculated the shot. 22 inches of bullet drop, a 12 miles per hour wind from the left causing 9 inches of wind drift. He aimed high and right and fired. The lead soldier fell. The other 5 soldiers immediately took cover and returned fire, not random, but disciplined. They had seen the muzzle flash, or a disturbance in the snow, something. They fired approximately 40 rounds from their Mosin Nagant 9130 rifles, 7.62 by 54 mm R, at Hiha's position in 15 seconds. Several rounds struck near Hiha, pinning him. He couldn't relocate. Then, 1 round hit. At 6:33 a.m., a Soviet bullet struck Hiha's face. It entered his left cheek, traveled through his jaw, shattered multiple teeth, and exited through his right cheek. The explosive hydraulic shock from the bullet's energy tore tissue throughout his lower face. His jaw was destroyed, his tongue partially severed. Blood filled his mouth and throat. He was choking, unable to breathe, seemingly dying. But Hiha didn't die. His brain registered the hit, and pain became irrelevant. His single priority was survival. He needed extraction. He couldn't call for help, his jaw destroyed, his voice gone. He needed to reach finish lines, 290 meters away. He needed to move. At 6:34 a.m., Hiha began to crawl, leaving his rifle behind. He crawled through the snow, blood pouring from his face, creating a visible trail. The Soviet patrol saw the blood trail and advanced, seeking confirmation, desperate to verify they had killed the White Death. Hiha crawled faster, covering 50 meters in 2 minutes, the Soviet patrol 200 meters behind him, closing in. At 6:37 a.m., Finnish machine gunners on the defensive line spotted Hiha crawling, and the pursuing Soviet patrol. The Finns opened fire with 2 Maxim M09-21 machine guns, 7.62 by 54 mm R, delivering sustained fire at 600 rounds per minute. The Soviet patrol took cover, while the Finns maintained suppressive fire. Finnish soldiers rushed forward, reaching Hiha at 6:39 a.m., dragging him to their lines. The Soviets withdrew. Hiha was barely alive. Finnish medics treated Hiha at the regimental aid station at 7:15 a.m. His condition was critical. Massive facial trauma, severe blood loss, and a compromised airway. Blood and tissue filled his throat, making breathing nearly impossible. The medics established an emergency airway. Intubation was impossible due to his damaged jaw, so they performed a field cricothyrotomy, making an incision in his throat below the larynx and inserting a tube. He could breathe, barely. Medics stabilized him and transported him to a field hospital located 15 kilometers behind the front lines, arriving at 9:30 a.m. Surgeons evaluated his wounds. A bullet had destroyed his left mandible, fractured his right, and dislodged 6 teeth. His tongue was severely cut, and extensive soft tissue damage was apparent. Although several blood vessels were severed, clotting had miraculously saved his life. Had the bullet struck his carotid artery, he would have perished within 90 seconds. The bullet missed by a mere 8 millimeters, a tiny margin that separated death from survival. Surgeons toiled for 6 hours, meticulously removing damaged tissue, mending fractures, and suturing lacerations. Immediate jaw reconstruction was impossible, requiring multiple operations over many years. Their immediate goal was preservation of life, and the operation succeeded. Hiha survived, but his injuries left him incapacitated. He could neither speak nor eat, receiving nutrition through a tube, his consciousness ebbing and flowing. On March 13, 1940, 1 week after Heha was shot, the Moscow Peace Treaty was signed by Finland and the Soviet Union, bringing the Winter War to an end. Finland ceded 11% of its territory, and the Soviets gained the Karelian Isthmus, Heha's home region. Rajärvi was now Soviet territory, and Heha's family farm was irrevocably lost. Finland preserved its independence, but at a high price. 70,000 Finnish casualties, including 25,900 dead. The Soviets suffered 321,000 casualties, with 126,875 fatalities, resulting in a staggering 5-to-1 exchange ratio. Despite their loss, Finland inflicted catastrophic casualties. Heha alone accounted for 542 Soviet casualties, 505 with his rifle, and 37 with his Suomi KP-31 submachine gun in close quarters. This remarkable tally of 542 confirmed kills in 98 days of combat, averaging 5.5 kills daily, cemented his reputation as the deadliest sniper in history. Heha remained hospitalized until July 1940. With his jaw partially healed, surgeons performed 3 additional operations, utilizing bone grafts to reconstruct his jaw and rebuild his left cheek. While partially successful, his face was permanently disfigured, marked by a collapsed left cheek and misaligned jaw. He could speak, albeit with difficulty, and eat slowly. His appearance forever altered, yet he was alive. On July 17, 1940, Heha was discharged and promoted to second lieutenant, a field promotion acknowledging his distinguished service. He was awarded the Cross of Kola, Finland's highest military decoration for Winter War service. The medal ceremony took place in August 1940, with Finnish Commander-in-Chief Carl Gustaf Emil Mannerheim personally presenting the award. When Mannerheim asked how he became such an adept marksman, Heha concisely replied, "Practice," a characteristic 2-word response reflecting his quiet, unassuming nature. Unable to return to his farm, which was now Soviet territory, Heha's family had evacuated and resettled in Ruokolahti, 80 kilometers to the west. The Finnish government compensated families who had lost land by providing new farms. Heha received 50 acres, where he built a small house, farmed, and hunted, living a serene existence. He rarely spoke of the war, and when questioned about his kills, he simply stated, "I did what was necessary, nothing more." In 1941, Finland entered the Continuation War against the Soviet Union, distinct from the Winter War. Heha volunteered for service, but the army declined due to his severe injuries, deeming him unfit for combat. Instead, he was assigned to training duties, instructing new snipers in marksmanship, camouflage, fieldcraft, and patience. His students eagerly sought his techniques, which he demonstrated with an emphasis on simplicity, iron sights, consistent positioning, breath control, and composure. His methods proved highly effective, as Finnish snipers in the Continuation War achieved an average of 2.3 kills per day, surpassing all other nations. Heha's training significantly contributed to this success. After the Continuation War concluded in 1944, Heha resumed farming in Ruokolahti, where he resided until his death. He never married and lived alone, hunting occasionally and attending veterans' gatherings. Though recognized and respected, he maintained his humility, consistently declining interviews. When journalists inquired about the war, he would simply say, "It was my duty. I fulfilled it. That is all." In 1998, at the age of 93, Heha granted a single interview to a Finnish historian who recorded their conversation. The historian asked if Heha regretted killing 542 men. Heha responded, "I regret that the war happened. I regret that men died. But I don't regret my actions. Soviet soldiers invaded my country. They would have killed Finns. I stopped them. That was my duty." When asked if he considered himself a hero, Heha replied, "No, I was a soldier. I followed orders. Heroes are men who sacrifice themselves. I survived. I'm just a farmer who learned to shoot." Simo Heha passed away peacefully on April 1, 2002, at the age of 96, in a veterans' nursing home in Hamina, Finland. He had lived 62 years after sustaining his facial injury and outlived the Soviet Union, which collapsed in 1991. Heha's contribution to Finland's independence was undeniable. His funeral was attended by 300 mourners, including veterans, politicians, and journalists, and the President of Finland sent condolences. Heha was laid to rest in Ruokolahti, his simple grave marked by a headstone bearing his name, dates, and the single word, soldier. Heha's Mosin Nagant M28-30 rifle endured the war. After Heha was wounded, Finnish soldiers retrieved his rifle from the snow, and it was returned to Finnish army inventory. Subsequently, it was assigned to another sniper, who used it for the remainder of the Winter War. Surviving the conflict, the rifle was returned to the Saco factory for refurbishment, where its barrel, worn from over 10,000 rounds fired, was replaced. The new barrel maintained the rifle's accuracy, and it was then relegated to training duty at the Finnish Army Sniper School for 40 years. In 1988, acknowledging its historical significance, the Finnish Army retired the rifle from service and donated it to the Finnish Military Museum in Helsinki. The rifle is now on display, its exhibit label identifying it as Simo Heha's Mosin Nagant M28-30, used to achieve 505 confirmed sniper kills in the Winter War, 1939 to 1940. The rifle itself is unremarkable. A standard wooden stock, blued steel barrel, iron sights, no modifications or special features. Just a conventional rifle wielded by an extraordinary marksman, achieving exceptional results. Contemporary snipers worldwide study Heha. His techniques are still taught in sniper schools far beyond Finland, including American, British, Russian, and Israeli institutions. The lessons remain timeless. Patience triumphs over technology. Simplicity surpasses complexity. Iron sights at 250 meters, combined with flawless fundamentals, can outperform scoped rifles at 500 meters with poor technique. Calmness under duress and adaptability to conditions are enduring principles. Heha demonstrated their efficacy in 1940, and they remain pertinent today. The Soviets never officially confirmed who shot Heha. Their Winter War records are incomplete, and the identity of the Soviet soldier who wounded him remains unknown. Though the Soviets repeatedly claimed to have killed the White Death, each assertion proved false, as Heha survived. Post-war, some Soviet veterans claimed credit for wounding him, but none could offer proof. The soldier who actually hit Heha likely either perished later in the war, died during Stalin's purges, or simply never realized the significance of their shot. The Soviets discharged thousands of rounds at Finnish positions. One fortuitously struck Heha. It was an instance of probability, of chance, not skill. The Soviets experienced one stroke of luck in 98 days, and that fortune nearly claimed the life of history's deadliest sniper. Heha's record remains unsurpassed. 542 confirmed kills. The next highest total belongs to Soviet sniper Ivan Sidorenko, with approximately 500 kills during World War II. However, Sidorenko operated for 4 years, while Heha's active service spanned only 98 days. Had Heha served a full year at the same rate, he would have accounted for 2,000 men. Over 4 years, like Sidorenko, that figure would have approached 8,000. These statistics are astounding. But Heha did not serve longer. He was shot. He survived, serving 98 days, achieving 542 kills, an average of 5.5 per day. No other sniper has matched this rate, nor this total in such a condensed time frame. Modern military analysts pinpoint 5 factors contributing to Heha's effectiveness: exceptional marksmanship, intimate knowledge of the terrain, extreme weather conditions creating opportunities, Soviet tactical ineptitude, and sheer luck. All 5 were indispensable. Removing any one would have diminished his success. His marksmanship was a blend of natural talent and diligent training. His familiarity with the land stemmed from 34 years of living there. The winter of 1939 to 1940 was exceptionally cold. Soviet tactics were rigid and predictable, and luck ensured his survival for 98 days, though probability suggested he should have died by day 30. All these elements converged, resulting in 542 deceased Soviet soldiers. The human cost of Heha's success is measured in those 542 lives. Soviet soldiers, primarily conscripts, with an average age of 22, mostly from Ukraine, Belarus, and Russia. They were farmers, factory workers, and students, forcibly drafted and dispatched to Finland. They perished in the frozen forests, never seeing their killer. One moment they were walking, the next, they were dead. Some died instantly. Others bled out in the snow. And some, wounded, froze to death before medical assistance could reach them. All were killed by an unseen Finnish farmer. The grim mathematics justified Heha's actions. Those 542 Soviet soldiers, had they lived, would have killed Finnish soldiers. Each Soviet soldier felled by Heha meant Finnish soldiers survived elsewhere. The exchange ratio favored Finland, yet the human toll remained. 542 families in the Soviet Union lost sons, husbands, fathers, leading to 542 funerals. Soviet authorities concealed the true cause of death, reporting them simply as killed in action, with no details or explanations. These families never knew their loved ones were killed by an invisible sniper from 300 meters away, never knew they walked into the forest and never returned, never knew they were one of 542. Heha grasped this profound cost. In his 1998 interview, when asked if he ever thought about the men he killed, he paused. He admitted, "I try to keep from it, but at times I do. They were just soldiers, following orders, much like myself. They didn't choose the war. Stalin chose it. Politicians initiated the conflict. Soldiers simply fought in it. I eliminated soldiers. They would have eliminated me if they had spotted me first. That's the reality of war. There's nothing heroic or glorious about it. It's simply killing. I was adept at killing, but that brings me no pride. It only saddens me that such a skill was necessary." This reflection unveils Heha's true nature. He wasn't a psychopath who reveled in taking lives. Rather, he was a soldier who grasped the harsh necessity of his actions. War demanded killing, and he carried it out with efficiency. He discharged his duty without celebrating it or boasting. When offered medals, he famously stated, "These should go to the soldiers who perished. They made a greater sacrifice than I did. I survived. They didn't." This profound humility defined Heha's existence. Despite being the deadliest sniper in history, he viewed himself merely as a farmer performing his duty, nothing more. The lingering question remains, how could a single farmer eliminate 542 trained soldiers in just 98 days? The answer is complex. Firstly, Heha possessed extraordinary marksmanship. Years of hunting had cultivated an unconscious proficiency. He didn't deliberate before shooting, he simply acted, guided by muscle memory and instinct. Secondly, he exhibited boundless patience. Farmers inherently understand patience. Crops grow slowly, and animals move unpredictably, necessitating long waits rather than hasty actions. Heha applied this agricultural patience to sniping, often waiting for hours for a single opportune moment. Thirdly, he operated in solitude, free from distractions or coordination demands. He made all decisions autonomously, moving and firing at will, his independence augmenting his efficacy. Fourthly, his intimate knowledge of the terrain was crucial. Having grown up merely 8 kilometers from Kola and hunted those forests for 22 years, he was intimately familiar with every trail, hill, and clearing. Soviet soldiers, conversely, relied on maps that showed trails, but lacked information on optimal sniper positions. Heha knew precisely where to position himself, selecting unexpected spots and firing from unpredictable vantage points. Fifthly, he exploited Soviet weaknesses. Their rigid tactics and predictable patrol patterns were quickly learned by Heha, who would position himself where patrols were destined to appear, wait, and then strike. Pattern recognition was paramount. Sixthly, he maintained unwavering discipline. He would only fire under perfect conditions. A clearly identified target, exact range known, wind assessed, escape route planned, and the finish line within reach. If conditions were suboptimal, he refrained. This patience and discipline set him apart from other snipers, who often took marginal shots, revealing their positions and ultimately perishing. Heha only fired at assured targets, remaining concealed and surviving. However, the most critical factor was his mindset. Heha approached sniping as problem-solving, not as combat or war. The problem? Soviet soldiers invading Finland. The solution? Eliminate them before they could eliminate Finns. He saw sniping much like hunting, a dispassionate act devoid of emotional attachment. Just as one doesn't hate an elk, but efficiently kills it, Heha didn't hate Soviet soldiers. He simply killed them efficiently. This psychological detachment allowed him to operate at peak effectiveness for 98 days, free from trauma or internal conflict. He was merely solving a problem, 542 times over. His mission was interrupted when he was shot, but the problem officially ended with the peace treaty. He then returned to farming, facing a new problem. Growing potatoes, applying the same methodical mindset. The impact of one man eliminating 542 Soviet soldiers was significant. These 542 individuals were removed from Soviet combat capability, unable to harm Finns, seize positions, or advance. One individual neutralized 542 enemy combatants, a feat highly valued in modern military theory, which emphasizes small teams achieving disproportionate effects through special operations. Heha was engaging in special operations before the term even existed. One man, one rifle, 542 enemy casualties. The cost-effectiveness was immeasurable. Finland invested a single rifle, a few thousand cartridges, and one skilled farmer. The return? 542 enemy dead, incalculable damage to morale, and a successful defense. Heha also demonstrated that technology isn't everything. Soviet snipers had scopes. Heha used iron sights. Soviet snipers operated in teams. Heha worked alone. Soviet snipers had more extensive training. Heha had hunting experience. Yet Heha killed more than all Soviet counter-snipers combined. This proves that technology cannot replace skill. Scopes cannot replace marksmanship. And teams cannot replace individual competence. Modern militaries sometimes overlook this, emphasizing equipment, technology, and systems. Heha's legacy reminds them, A skilled individual with simple tools outperforms mediocre individuals with complex tools. Finally, Heiha embodied the Finnish concept of sisu, a term difficult to translate but signifying determination, perseverance, and an unbreakable refusal to quit despite impossible odds. Finland itself displayed sisu, with 300,000 Finns confronting 1 million Soviets, fighting and ultimately surviving. Heiha personified sisu. Shot in the face, his face disfigured, he crawled 290 meters to safety, survived, recovered, taught, farmed, and lived for 62 more years. Sisu is refusing to die, refusing to quit, and persevering. That is Heiha's ultimate legacy. Not merely the 542 kills, but his survival, his continued life, his refusal to be defeated by war, injury, or circumstance. Today, Heiha is regarded as a national hero in Finland. However, he would likely reject such a label. He would prefer to be remembered simply as he was, a farmer, a soldier, a man who fulfilled his duty, nothing more, nothing less. The 542 kills are mere statistics. What truly mattered was Finland's survival and continued independence. Heiha contributed to that, and for him, that was enough. It should be enough for history. If this narrative resonated with you, please hit the like button. Every like helps YouTube share these forgotten stories with a wider audience. Subscribe and enable notifications, as we are committed to preserving true narratives of extraordinary individuals every single day. Leave a comment now and tell us where you're watching from. Do you know anyone from Finland? Have you heard of the Winter War? Let us know you're here. Thank you for watching, and thank you for ensuring Simo's story is not forgotten. These heroes deserve to be remembered. Embarking on this endeavor, your contribution is invaluable.